Hello everyone and welcome to my Unlocking Your Pelvis Yin sequence. If you're not familiar with Yin Yoga, it's a great complement to Vinyasa Yoga and our more active styles of practice. We'll hold poses in a passive manner for longer periods of time, supported or unsupported by props. So props aren't mandatory in Yin, but they are highly recommended. I recommend having a bolster of some kind, which could just simply be a pillow or a couple of pillows, preferably as firm as you can get. A folded up blanket, or maybe 2 blankets, especially if you don't have a bolster. You might even use 3 of them, and a block if you have one. Now, with that being said, you can do this entire yin practice with no props at all, but they can be helpful to support your body in different ways as we really sink into different poses. These poses are designed to unlock and release some of the tension that we hold in the lower part of our body and our pelvis through different postures and shapes. So as you are ready, we're going to start in our first yin posture, which is our butterfly pose. Now, butterfly pose is a seated pose, and I recommend, especially if your hip flexors are a little tighter, sitting on the edge of a blanket. You'll bring the soles of your feet together, the knees will open wide. But rather than a traditional bound angle pose that we would find in a vinyasa class, you're going to allow the body to rest passively here. So rather than keep the spine long and straight and actively pull yourself deeper, you'll allow the spine to round. You'll let go of the head and neck, letting it drop heavily as well. I like to use a bolster for underneath of my forearms or forehead. You might have to stack objects if your hip flexors are a little tighter so that you can find that support. And once you're in a comfortable place, allow the eyes to close. So in each of our yin postures, we aim to find our principles of yin. And there's 3 of them. The first principle is that we find our edge. So that's the first step. And our edge in a yin practice is a place where we feel sensation, where we feel opening, maybe even a little bit of discomfort, a little bit of a releasing sensation, not pain. And we want to feel those sensations, not an overwhelming amount, because we want to keep the muscles soft and relaxed. And we want to be able to find our second principle of yin, which is that we find stillness. It can be extremely difficult to find stillness when we're experiencing an overwhelming amount of discomfort. And so throughout this practice, if you find that it's impossible to be still, that might be your body's way of telling you that you've gone past your edge. And after we find our edge, after we find stillness, softness, then we stay and we hold for a period of time. That's our third principle, holding. In yin, we don't work to release tension or tightness in the muscles like we do in more active styles of yoga practice. In yin, we aim to release and open through our fascia, our connective tissue. That which surrounds our muscles is in between our muscles, even within the muscles. Our muscles are much stronger than our fascia. And so when the muscles are engaged, it takes over, and the fascia doesn't have to do much. It's able to remain tight. But when we let the muscles soften and we sink into a shape, such as this one, and the fascia is forced to open, to release, to unwind and unburden itself. That's why the stillness is so important. Even keeping the eyes closed, resisting the urge to fidget and look around through the eyes, fidget or move the fingers or toes. Because even those movements make muscles work and activate. Find your breath. Allow the movement of your breath to be an anchor for your awareness as you sink into stillness. Allow your awareness and focus on the sensations you feel in your body as they grow and move and change and transform. Be an anchor for your awareness. Whenever the mind starts to wander off to another place, which it will, especially in yin when we're still for so much longer, come back to the breath, come back to sensation. Perhaps you come back to a mantra or affirmation or intention you set for yourself here. Here, notice if perhaps your edge has melted away and made space for you to mindfully deepen your pose. And if it has, perhaps you choose to go a little deeper, round a little further for the next 30 seconds or so that we're here. And notice that if that space was made, if that opportunity did present itself to deepen, that it occurred through surrendering, softening, stillness, and just allowing gravity to work on the body, not by forcing effort, engagement, striving, but allowing. Take a few more breaths here. As you inhale, take a deep breath in through the nose. Exhale to sigh through the mouth. Deep inhale. Long exhale. Slowly, mindfully start to roll your way back up the spine. And at the top for a moment, grab a hold of the ankles, press the feet together, lift the heart, lift the gaze, take a breath. And now here we'll go to counter that pose. And so to counter our butterfly pose, you'll go ahead and come off of any blanket or lift you may have been on. You'll lean back into the hands, separating the feet hips width distance apart. And as you inhale, press down into the hands to lift the heart. And as you exhale, press down into the feet to lift the hips, finding reverse table. Deep breath in, breath out. Inhale, exhale. One more. And here, gently lower the hips down, and then begin to come all the way down onto the back. And you can even put a blanket or a pillow underneath of the head here if you'd like. And from here, You'll go ahead and extend the legs out in front of you. Reach the arms up overhead. Just find a full body stretch for a moment. And then you'll draw the left knee in towards your chest. And take a deep breath in. And as you exhale, you'll press the left knee across the body over to the right. Now this might be where you stay this entire time. If you need a little more support, you might put a block, a bolster, or blanket underneath of the left knee. You might put a support underneath the length of the spine. You can stay here twisting in this way, or you can continue to deepen into cat tail twist, which would be extending your top leg out to the right, reaching for the foot with the right hand, or you can loop your foot with a strap or a scarf. This might be where you stay, or you might bend your bottom knee and try to reach for your bottom right foot with your left hand. Now, because in Yin we want our muscles to be soft, if you're gripping a hold of the feet, try to resist the urge to death grip through the fingers, but just find a hold where your hands can relax as much as they possibly can. Allow the eyes to close. Find your edge. Find that place where you feel sensation, so it's not restorative, where the sensation is gone completely, but where it's not an overwhelming amount of sensation that brings about suffering or pain and the inability to stay or be still. Find that happy medium and become still there. Become soft there. Resist the urge to force your twist deeper, to force your left leg straighter. None of those things matter in this shape. Instead, bring about the allowing, the surrendering, the being, and the feeling. Knowing that there is no right or wrong alignment, like there is in more active styles of yoga. Find your edge. Find stillness. And stay. Breathe. Notice what you notice. Notice the way the breath moves. Notice the sensations you feel, where you feel them, how you feel them, how they change. And although we resist the urge to move, if you choose a edge that's too far, you can always move mindfully to back out and readjust. And if your edge melts away, you can always move mindfully to deepen and settle back in. It's that mindless movement, the fidgeting, the looking around that we wish to avoid. And when we do need to move, we do it intentionally, mindfully, purposefully. Notice if you started to bring in any engaging or any tension into the body. You started clenching the jaw, gripping the fingers, clenching the toes, engaging the core of the body. As much as possible, allow yourself to soften. Take 10 more breaths here. next inhale, take a deep breath in through the nose. Gently sigh it out. From here, if you have a hold of either of your feet or a strap on either of the feet, gently let them go. Re-extend your bottom leg and slowly, mindfully roll back to center. And as you come back onto your back, draw the knees into the chest, rock side to side. And here, as we counter stretch our cat-tail twist, begin to find any movements that intuitively would feel good for you here to balance the body. So maybe that's hugging the knees in as we are now. Maybe that's happy baby pose. Maybe it's bridge pose, plow pose, shoulder stand. There's really no right or wrong answer. It's whatever feels best for you to do. Just taking a few breaths in that place, whatever it may be. Perhaps you close the eyes there as well. And take another deep breath in and out. And as you exhale, come out of whatever shape you're in. Extend the legs out in front of you, the arms along the sides of the body, finding a brief corpse pose with the eyes closed. To allow that pose to settle in the body, the effects of that pose to settle. Notice how the body feels, how one side feels compared to the other, if there's a difference or not. Notice the breath. Take another deep breath in through the nose. Sigh it out. Here, as you're ready, gently draw the right knee into the chest. Hug the thigh towards the belly, the knee towards the underarm. And as you're ready, start to press the right knee across the body over to the left. Setting up for our cattail twist on the other side. Same options as before. This might be where you stay, perhaps with a blanket under the head, a blanket or block or bolster under the knee or behind the spine. Maybe you reach for the right foot with the left hand. Perhaps you bend into your bottom left knee and reach for that foot with the right hand, or loop either one with a strap. Whatever it is, find your edge mindfully and intentionally. And know that, especially in yin, one side may be very different from the other. So this side, maybe you are able to bend both knees and reach for both feet, and maybe on the other side you weren't able to do either one, or vice versa. Honor your body and side to side. Don't compare one side to the other, or if you do, don't judge one side compared to the other as being better or worse. It just is. Breathe here. Soften. Be still. And stay. And when the mind wanders, come back to noticing what you feel physically in the body. Come back to the movement of breath throughout the body. If you have an intention, come back to that. Whatever it is that keeps you anchored and rooted in the present, and being present for yourself in this pose, here and now. scan through and notice if there's a sense of tension or engagement, activation of muscles anywhere. Continue to encourage that softening, surrendering. Take 20 more breaths on this side. Release your jaw, release the tongue from the roof of the mouth. Release any death gripping of your fingers, clenching of the eyelids, engagement of the belly or arms. Take a few more breaths here. Your next inhale, take a deep breath in. Sigh it out. Slowly, mindfully work to let go of any connection with the feet. Working to come back to center, hugging the knees in, rocking side to side, perhaps circling. And again, just taking the time to intuitively move however feels best for you here to counter and release from that pose. So for me, my personal favorite here is bridge pose, but for you that might not feel good and maybe something else feels a whole lot better. One of my favorite parts about Yin is that it's such an individualized practice. The way our body settles into a pose is drastically different person to person based on your own skeletal anatomy. The way that we react pose to pose is different person to person. The way we use props and support ourselves is different. And the way that we release a pose is different. Take a deep breath in. Sigh it out. Work to extend the legs in front of you, the arms by the sides. Settling into corpse pose just for a moment. For a few breaths. And just notice what you notice. And take another deep breath in. Gentle sigh out. And here, draw the knees in and gently roll off to one side. Pause there for a moment. And slowly press yourself up to seated. And as you come up, we'll set up for another seated yin posture, our half dragonfly pose. So here, again, you might find that sitting on the edge of a blanket is helpful. And we'll start by extending the right leg out to the right, folding the left leg in. I like to have a bolster in front of me. You might want a bolster, a blanket, blocks, or you can make a stack of props as high as you need. But as you're ready, you'll begin to round forward and fold in the center. So we're not folding forward over our right leg here, but right in the middle. Whenever we do full dragonfly with both legs extended, whatever leg is tighter, has tighter fascia, holds us back from going deeper. When we do each side, we're really getting the full experience of each hip, each side of the groin, each hamstring, and getting a clear idea of how our sides differ from one another instead of how they are when they're combined together. And find your edge. Find the amount of support that you need to be in your edge. Support under the forehead or arms, support under the pelvis, perhaps support under the right knee, or even the left knee. Close your eyes if they're not already, and settle in. Finding stillness and staying there as best as you can. But always reminding yourself that although we tend to think of movement as being hard and stillness as being easy, for most of us it's stillness that's the harder work. So if you find that it's difficult for you to be still, whether that be physically or mentally or both, give yourself a little grace and understanding, especially if you don't practice stillness often. It is a practice too. And although it may be hard to find stillness today, when we continue to practice, you might find that one day it becomes almost second nature. So be easy on yourself. In Yin Yoga and any style of yoga, because it's all a practice. Notice if your edge has melted away at all to where you're able to safely and mindfully deepen. And maybe it hasn't. Perhaps you need to back out. And that's okay too. Meet your body where it is, not where you want it to be. Although in life and in yoga, it can be so easy to set goals and strive for some future endeavor, some future image of what we want or what we want to look like or what we want a pose to look like. The Yoga Sutras tell us that the point of yoga is just to be present with what is, fully and completely. Not to strive and reach and grasp for what isn't. When you do yoga, instead of thinking of it as a means to a future end, try to just be present with what it is right now, with the sensation right now, with the breath right now. Our yin practice is the perfect opportunity to practice just that. Take another deep breath in. Sigh it out. Slowly, mindfully start to rise up. And at the top, reach both arms up overhead. And as you exhale, activate the legs. Take your right hand to your left knee, the left hand behind, and just counter twist to the left. Breath in and out. And here, gently come back around. And here you're going to take your left knee forward. Use your hands to help bend the right knee and stack the right knee on top of the left, finding shoelace pose. And this is a perfect pose to sit on a blanket or a bolster. Oftentimes when our pelvis is tight, when our IT bands are tight, it can really prevent us from sitting in this way. Now, if even sitting on support, this pose just is not going to be able to give you an edge that you can stay with, you can always extend your bottom left leg forward so that it's straight. You'll get into your left hamstring a little bit more than you would otherwise, but that's okay. It's just a slightly different pose, but it's still just as beneficial. And then once you have your legs set, you might find that just leaning forward and lowering your head and neck is enough sensation for you. Many people tend to be very tight through their pelvis and through their IT bands to where this is enough. However, if you are able to go further, then you might start to round the spine. Maybe resting the forearms on a bolster like I'm doing. Maybe stacking higher with pillows and blankets and blocks and assorted items. I like to use a bolster and a blanket so that I can rest my forearms on the bolster and my forehead on the blanket. Just find the appropriate place for you. Find your stillness, find your softness, find your breath. And especially in this pose, which for some can be incredibly intense. Watch out for the fidgeting, for the looking around, for the engaging of muscles when we're trying to avoid it. Keep coming back to what anchors you into the present, rather than thinking of the sensations you feel as something you need to ignore or run away from or distract yourself from. Allow them to be an anchor that you focus directly on to be present. Become curious about them, notice them, investigate them, where you feel them, how you feel them, what they feel like. I have a teacher who says that oftentimes the only language that we know to talk about our sensations is whether something feels good or bad. And Yin gives us the perfect opportunity to begin to expand that language into something a little more detailed. Whether something feels hot, cold, tingly, whether you feel a sense of releasing, an opening, a lengthening. Notice those things. Take 10 more breaths. Take a deep breath in through the nose. Take a long sigh out. Slowly and mindfully start to walk your way up. At the top, activate the legs, squeeze the thighs, reach the arms overhead. And as you exhale, twist to your right, taking the left arm across, taking the right arm behind. Deep breath in. Breath out. On your next inhale, come back to center, reach the arms overhead. And as you exhale, take your right hand down and reach up and over with the left arm, finding a side stretch for a moment. As you inhale, come to center. And as you exhale, switch sides, coming to the left, pressing your right hip down. Inhale to center. And here, gently uncross the legs. Take the feet out, hips width distance apart, and just start to windshield wiper the knees back and forth. And we want the feet to be hips width distance apart so that the knees really have room to drop down side to side as you twist, instead of stacking on top of one another. And then on your next exhale, let both knees fall to the right, so that your right foot is on top of your left thigh. Start to twist to the right, walking your hands out to the right, and you can either just lower down onto your forearms, or you might lower down onto a bolster, a pillow, a blanket, just letting your head rest down. You could also just be on your forearms with a support under the forehead, finding a brief deer pose twist, just to counter those last two poses, our half dragonfly and our shoelace, by closing the hips off. Good. Take a breath in. Sigh it out. Start to walk the hands up. And then now we'll work to find our half dragonfly pose on our opposite side. So we'll extend the left leg out. We'll fold the right leg in. Take the time to mindfully support your body here with props or without them as much as you need. So you might find that on last side you barely needed any props, and maybe on this side you need a lot, or vice versa. For instance, for me, I don't need any support under my bent knee on the other side, but when I come into this side, I really like to have a blanket under my right knee, because I'll get tension in my right side of my low back if I don't. Support your body however you need on this side, without worrying about how it compares to or differs from the other. And as you're ready, fold in, round the spine, drop the head and neck. Don't worry about if your left foot is turning in or turning out. When we rest in stillness, the left foot might turn in or out, just depending on how your femur bone, your thigh bone, inserts into your hip socket. For some people, that insertion is slightly externally rotated, turned out. For some, it's slightly internally rotated and turned in. When we do active yoga, we always work to keep that rotation neutral in poses like this, with the knee and toes pointing upwards so that we're not rotating one way or the other. But that's because we're actively forcing ourselves deeper in those poses. In yin, when we're softening in and we're still, when we're not engaging, then we want our body to rest in its natural skeletal alignment. That might mean that on this side your foot turns in, on the other side your foot turned out. Everybody's skeleton is slightly different. So everyone's yin postures are too. They're unique to you and your body, your practice. Notice if you've made space to deepen or if you need to back out. And adjust accordingly if you need to. Notice if you started to tense or engage anywhere, and soften accordingly if you need to. Holding here for 15 or so more breaths. And trying not to anticipate the movement that comes after those breaths, but just staying in the stillness of this pose for the next few breaths. Few more breaths. Take a deep breath in. Sigh it out. Slowly, mindfully start to roll up the spine. At the top, engage the legs, reach the arms. As you exhale, twist to the right. Take the left arm across, the right arm behind. Deep breath in. Breath out. Inhale. Exhale. And gently come back around. And here, working into shoelace pose, you'll let your hand help bend the right knee and the left, bringing the right knee directly forward, working to stack the left knee on top. Again, maybe you sit on the edge of a blanket or some sort of support here, a pillow or something. Maybe you need to extend your bottom right leg straight out in front of you. Begin to prepare any support that you need for your forearms or your forehead. And as you're ready, start to round forward to fold. Taking the time to get all your fidgets out as you set up this pose. And then to rest in stillness once you're there. And especially in a pose like this, the differences between our sides can become really apparent. So it might have been easy for you to rest in the stillness of the last side and much more challenging for you on this side. Just notice that without any kind of label or judgment on it. Breathe here. You might even notice the breath as it moves in the back of the body more so than the belly. Feeling the back body inflate and expand as you inhale, and deflate and contract and fall as you exhale. Notice what you notice. Take 10 more breaths here. Notice how the sensations of this pose have changed and transformed. Perhaps they've moved or grown. Take a deep breath in through the nose. Sigh it out. Here, slowly start to come back up. And at the top, as you rise up, activate the legs, squeeze the thighs together, flex the feet, reach up through the arms. Inhale. Exhale to twist to the left. Deep breath in. Breath out. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale to center, reach the arms. As you exhale, take the left hand down, reach up and over with the right arm, pressing the right hip down. Inhale to center. Exhale to the right. Inhale to center. And here, once again, lean back, separate the feet out, hips width distance apart or wider. Start to windshield wiper the knees side to side, letting the knees come all the way down as low as they can, so giving enough space between your feet so that they can come all the way down. Just internally rotating our hips inwards. Good. And the next time the knees fall to the left, go ahead and leave them there, letting the torso rise up. Left foot's touching the right thigh. You can also always, if this is uncomfortable, you can put a blanket in between your foot and your knee. Start to twist to the left, walking the hands down and either resting on the forearms or maybe resting on a bolster or a pillow or rolled up blanket of some sort. Finding a little more of a restorative type yin pose in our deer pose twist. Letting the body settle for a few breaths. Good. Take a breath in. Sigh it out. Slowly start to rise up here. And then as you're ready, begin to come all the way down onto your back. And as you come down onto the back, hug the knees into the chest, rock side to side, maybe circling clockwise or counterclockwise. Then here, separate the knees, either reaching for the outer edges of the feet or backs of the thighs. Just finding a brief happy baby pose. You can either be still and heavy here, just reaching the tailbone towards the floor, or you can maybe gently rock side to side if you'd like some movement as well. And bring the knees back together to touch. Squeeze the thighs in towards each other. Maybe you curl the forehead up towards the knees. And then as you exhale, work to find where you'd like to take Shavasana today, where you'd like to take rest. My suggestion is that if you do have access to a bolster or a rolled up blanket, to put it behind the length of the spine, just letting the heart have a little bit of a lift. And of course, if you don't have access to one, that's okay. You don't have to use that. And then allow the legs to go wherever they'll be the most comfortable for you, whether that's extended out in front of you long. Perhaps you take the soles of the feet together and let the knees open wide, coming back into a butterfly pose in the legs, but laying down instead of sitting up like we started practice with. Perhaps you'd like to close the hips instead, and you might bend the knees and knock them together to touch with the feet out wide, finding a counter posture to that. Allow the arms to be wherever they're most comfortable. Put a pillow or blanket behind the head if you'd like, or cover yourself up with the blanket if you'd like. Finding a place where you can be still and soft and where you can stay. Similar to what we did in all of our other yin postures, except this time trying to eliminate as much sensation as you can so that it does become more restorative. Letting go of the opening, the releasing. Still finding a sense of surrendering and allowing, sense of being and feeling. Allowing the breath to return to its natural rhythm and cadence. And just noticing that rhythm as it comes and goes. And nowhere left to go and nothing left to do except to just be here and be still. Gently begin to take your deepest breath in so far, and your longest, softest breath out. Reach the arms overhead, stretch the legs out in front of you if you can do so wherever you are. And then mindfully work to roll onto one side. And as you come onto your side, allow your top hand to rest at your heart. And take a moment here to end your practice with a place of gratitude. Gratitude towards yourself most of all for carving out the time and the space to practice. And perhaps practice in a different way than you usually do. For being willing to surrender and be present, maybe even be uncomfortable. And know that just the act of showing up and being willing to be open to those things is always enough, regardless of what your practice looked or felt like. It was enough. And with that same hand, gently press yourself up to seated, bringing the hands together at the heart as you do. And I just wanted to extend my own gratitude to you, whoever you are, wherever you are, for sharing your time and your practice, your space and your stillness with me. And I hope that you may be able to carry any benefits you feel with you now for however long you may need them. And until we see each other on our mats again, namaste.